So we are here to talk about Collector's Notes, which is a podcast that we made and recorded last term. Chloe, do you want to give us a brief introduction into what the podcast was about? And then Ellie, do you want to maybe speak to how the idea developed?
Collector's Notes is a podcast about music superfans, and each episode we go to a different music superfan, someone who's a fan of a different musical genre, and look at their collection, whether or not it's on vinyl, CD, maybe even cassette, and ask them why they love that musical genre and why they collect it.
We kind of started off with the idea that we wanted to do like a music history podcast in a way, um, or just a podcast about music in general. And so off the back of that, I was thinking about my neighbor and close and dear friend David, who is an absolute fanatic about opera. He's actually on the 23rd of April. He's going to his 5,000th performance ever, plays operas, anything. And it's amazing. Yeah, so we interviewed him and talked to him a bit about what he collects and the passions behind why he collects.
So, I mean, we're all fans of music, which sort of brought us together. And then we sort of developed this initial idea for the podcast. But then, Chloe, how did the research that we all conducted sort of give us more of an idea about who our audience would be?
I went away and had a look at who is actually collecting music in physical form. And what was really interesting to me, and I guess almost quite surprising, is that Gen Z is 27% more likely to be buying vinyl than the average. So that kind of made me realize that Gen Z was probably our target audience because they're the ones actually collecting music. And moreover, they're the ones who are listening to the most music on streaming. So it really kind of goes to show that music is very much something that is a hobby and a life, a pastime, and something that really matters. And so that it just seemed quite clear that we needed to target them for this podcast.
And originally, I remember like we were all quite interested in talking about the history of music. And then we did a bit of market research. And there's tons of podcasts out there that sort of are too similar to that. So you have to factor in the market research and also audience behavior, and then really match your interests with what the market and audience are doing and saying. So we had our initial idea, and then we had David, who was like who had such a great story and was such a compelling interviewee. Ellie, do you want to then speak a bit more about how we began? How we progressed through the process of recording, like interviewing David.
So we went over to his house, me and Chloe did, because it's a bit smaller of a space, so we didn't want to overcrowd with everybody. But we went in and we kind of recorded him in his home with his collection around him, just to get that warm, comforting feeling, and hopefully it translated to the audience as well, or the listener. But yeah, so it was really sweet. I We chatted a bit about where he grew up, how he grew up, his love for music, where it came from, where how it's gone or where it's gone. And yeah, it was just honestly, it was such a nice experience. I love talking to him.
And I think also what we were doing by recording it in his own home with his collection was we wanted to get this kind of sense of authenticity to kind of really place you alongside the interviewee with his collection and make you feel like you're kind of there by his side. And we did other interviews with music psychologists about where this love of music comes from in your early childhood and why we collect music. And that adds an extra kind of dimension and appreciation of what's going through David's mind and his heart when he listens to music and why, and it kind of helps relate it to the rest of us.
And then as well, like we made the most of opportune moments. Like for example, when Chloe and I were in Oxford, recording one of our interviewees, Eric Clark, there was a piano tuner that day, like in one of these really old buildings, and we spoke to him and got his consent to record, and it was like the most like really beautiful sound that we could then use for Soundscape for the podcast.
I mean, I wanted to say a little bit about the soundscape, just to add to what you were saying. So, obviously, it's a music podcast and it therefore needs some music. Um, so, I was very fortunate that I have a wonderful friend called Marta Fontanelle Simmons, who is a mezzo soprano, performs all over the world. And she very generously gave up her time to record a beautiful aria called Che faro senza Eurydice, specifically for the, especially for the podcast. And so we recorded that with her performing, and we recorded it with her singing the whole thing all the way through with the piano accompaniment, and then also her singing just a few lines from it and then stopping with the piano carrying on. And that allowed us to mix it in with the piano as a bed under some of the speech as well. So that added a really nice crafted element, which I think speaks to the authenticity that younger podcast audience members are looking for.
And going off the back of that, I ended up making a playlist on Spotify for Collector's Notes. Basically just full of all of the different songs and tracks that David picked out himself. The reason that we did this playlist is because our audience is mainly Gen Z. I'm sure that they love feeling that connection with the person that they're listening to. And it's also just kind of a great marketing tool for us as a podcast as well. It's kind of like a starter pack in getting into this type of genre of music. So, for all of the other music lovers out there who are interested in getting into other genres but don't know where to start, it's what I consider the perfect starter pack for getting into new music.